Hi, my name is Martin, and today I'd like to cover someone who is up for canonization, but is not quite there yet. He is Blessed Solanus Casey. He's an unusual guy, unlike a lot of the people we know who are very lofty and have done incredible things in a lot of different ways. Solanus took a different road. So I'd like to break it up a little bit, and one is more biographical, and the other one is his particular love for the sick and the poor. So starting with the biographical, interesting, Solanus was one of 16 children, an Irish family, and they had 10 boys and 6 girls. They all loved sports, and the boys, with the 10 of them, essentially became their own baseball team. So let me begin. Father Solanus Casey was born Bernard Francis Casey to Irish immigrants in Oak Grove, Wisconsin, on November 25, 1875. From a young age, Casey showed how strong he was spiritually. He allowed difficult moments throughout his young life to bring him closer to God. Contracting a disease that permanently damaged his voice, having an engagement broken off, and witnessing a murder while he worked as a prison guard. Soon after these occurrences, Casey decided to devote his life to God as a priest. For years, he struggled with his studies in seminary until he was told he would be better off joining a religious order. After praying before a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Casey heard a voice telling him, "Go to Detroit." He left Wisconsin for Detroit to join the Order of Friars Minor, Capuchin. He was accepted into the order at the age of 33, and taking the name of Solanus after St. Francis Solano, was ordained a simplex priest, meaning he could not hear confessions or preach doctrinal sermons. During his time as a Capuchin, he ministered in New York City, Yonkers, New York, Huntington, Indiana, and again in Detroit. Early on, he was recognized as a holy man, spending much of his time feeding the poor and caring for the sick. Many said he had a healing touch for the ill, people who would line up for blocks to see Father Solanus. Because he was a porter of the Detroit monastery door, people would call him the Doorkeeper. By the way, this is very reminiscent of Brother Andrew in Montreal, who also was a porter for the Holy Cross Fathers. He never turned people away when they wanted to speak to him. Even his joy was obvious to everyone, and he would often share his love for playing the violin with his fellow friars. In 1946, his health began to decline from a skin condition, and for the next few years, he was in and out of the hospital. On July 31st, 1957, Father Solanus Casey passed away. His last words were, "I give my soul to Jesus Christ." Thousands attended his funeral. He was buried in Detroit, and in 1987 was exhumed and reinterred into the Father Solanus Casey Center, also in Detroit, Michigan. His remains were found to be mostly incorrupt. Many miracles have been attributed to Father Solanus' intercession. In 1995, Pope John Paul II raised Father Solanus Casey from the title of Servant of God to Venerable, and on May 4th, 2017, Pope Francis announced a miracle confirmed by the Vatican, raising his title to Blessed. The beatification was held in November of 2017 and was attended by Vatican officials from Rome, as well as an astounding 60,000 pilgrims and faithful from Detroit. We continue to pray for Blessed Solanus' canonization. The second part of it is his love for both the sick and the poor. He is quoted as saying, "I have two loves, the sick and the poor. Thank God that includes all of us. Don't we all suffer both sickness and poverty in body, mind, or spirit at one time or another? Father Solanus, no doubt, included himself. Pray for poor Father Solanus, who, like all poor sinners, needs the grace of God to be fully converted. True or real conversion, he said, couldn't happen this side of heaven. Even during his final illness, he said, "I'm offering my sufferings, that all might be one. If only I could see the conversion of the whole world." It is Father Solanus's humility, the modesty of his own importance, that sets him apart. Father Solanus saw in himself the limitations and weaknesses of being human. Having not been assigned the job of doorkeeper in Manhattan, Father Solanus had time to consider conversion. That is, conversion from the control of his shortcomings, sensitivity to criticism, an ego that liked to be stroked, the ability to rationalize his negative tendencies, subtle forms of pride, and insensitivity to the needs of the poor. So how did he eventually come to count the poor among his two greatest loves? Inevitably, when you can't see something in yourself, you project the quality onto someone else. Someone once said, either judging or admiring the quality in them. It was during this period of deepening that Father Solanus further purified his motives and dreams. His personality turned away from practical goals to visionary goals. His increasing generosity toward people was marked by enthusiasm and a zeal for souls. His union with God was achieved through ecstatic prayer and the desire to encourage others to seek his union. At St. Bonaventure in Detroit, Blessed Solanus would answer the door and help those who were suffering in poverty by offering food from the monastery kitchen. On October 29, 1929, the Great Crash sparked mass layoffs in the auto industry and marked the beginning of the Great Depression that wouldn't end until the Second World War. Blessed Solanus' ministry at the door of St. Bonaventure inspired the other Capuchin friars, the Third Order Franciscans, and other lay people to work together to build a permanent, formal institution to attend to the spiritual and basic human needs of the poor, especially the need for food. Thus, the Capuchin Soup Kitchen was born on November 2nd, 1929, and continues its ministry today. This move from his shadow self toward his true self opened his spirit to be even more receptive to God. Holding hands with Sister Death during an infection of gangrene further sealed Father Solanus' courage to face the truth about himself. He wrote, "I had been in agony for at least 40 hours, though no one seemed to know about it. And while I tried to thank God for it all, my simple prayer, at least 1,000 times repeated, was, God, help us. God, help us. God, help us." Sister Death loosened her grip and Solanus left the hospital within a short time. As much as one would like to imagine that Father Solanus might have been perfect, isn't it comforting to know that he was human like you and me? His compassion and patience for people seemed to stem from a deep knowing of those anxieties in himself, which he abandoned for the sake of others who needed him, and he understood them. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, take care.